How does racism impact a person's health?
Racism impacts a person's health in multiple ways. I think it's a great question because we often have people ask this question saying that medicine is really an objective occupation, right? You look at a certain list of diagnostics and you tell a person based on that diagnostic what their diagnosis should be, what their condition is, etc. The challenge is that when a person is looking at that objective data and they have some biases, unconscious bias or not, that is where racism could play a part in someone's health care. That's one way. The second way is things that are embedded, medical racism, that are embedded in medicine that people just don't even know exist, like race based clinical decision tools like the EGFR, the PFTs, where you have a coefficient that's assigned to people who are minorities, and that decreases the likelihood that they receive a higher level of care. Something that it is embedded, and a conscious clinician wouldn't even recognize that racism is playing a part in how they're caring for their patients. So racism can show up in multiple ways, and it's just really, really important that any clinician, nurse practitioner, PA, physician, are aware of their own biases and also are aware of the tools that they're using to care for their patient, whether it's a diagnostic tool, whatever it is, that they are aware, and they're checking it at the door as they're caring for their members,
I'm glad
patients.
I'm glad that you brought that up because what I noticed, I saw this in education. People have this idea that whatever the culture is in society is going to be different from what it is in a corporate or private
Absolutely.
institution. And I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
People fail to realize that the same ideas you have about others in your regular life, you can't have them in your professional
We're
life.
humans.
You know.
Yep.
Also, too, can you touch on stress? They speak a lot of. I hear people talk about how racism impacts people, black people, on a more on just a stressful level and a burden in their daily life.
I think people don't recognize how impactful racism is to any human being, right? The person that the negative the negative effects of the person who's receiving on the receiving end of racism. I don't think people realize that not just you and I, right? Because we identify as black people, but even for our parents, our grandparents, for them and them experiencing racism, it starts to change your DNA. Like people don't understand, like allostatic load literally will change your genes. And so when we say that the impacts of racism are generational, it's not just from a mental perspective, a psychological perspective. It is also from a biological perspective. That racism changes their genetic makeup. And then we question why we see chronic disease in black people at a higher rate of black people. That's because the social determinant of racism
Yeah.
has impacted them to a certain degree that changed their genetic makeup from 4 generations ago, 5 generations ago. And the people that we see today who are on the earth with us today are realizing that from whatever medical condition that they have.